I saved his life 3 times. He remembered my scent, and that I refused to lie down beside him. The forest was too quiet for a war zone. That's what tipped me off. I crouched behind a thicket, eyes scanning the clearing ahead, heart hammering not from fear, but from the telltale hum just beneath the surface, the one that said something was wrong. My beast stirred, sniffing the air like it knew what my mind hadn't caught up to yet. A second too late, I spotted it. A pressure-triggered mine half buried beneath the moss glinting in the moonlight. And Raiden, the great Commander Raiden, was walking straight toward it. Of course, it would be him. "Don't move," I shouted, breaking cover. He turned sharply. "What the?" I dove. Shoulders slammed into his torso. We hit the ground just as the trap clicked, and the mine exploded behind us in a scream of shrapnel and heat. The world tilted. Sound rang high and sharp in my ears, but he was alive. Heavy, half-conscious weight pressed against me. Blood trickled down his temple. I expected him to bark orders, curse me, push me off. Instead, his hand gripped my forearm, tight. His nose brushed my neck. "You smell like..." His voice was cracked. "Like safety." I froze. My body betrayed me. A low, involuntary thrum rose in my chest. My beast surged forward like it recognized the weight on top of me. "No. Not now. Not him." I shoved him off. "That's not safety," I said, voice cold. "That's control." Back at the base, they handed Raiden a silver medal. They handed me silence. I stood at the edge of the briefing room, arms folded, watching him get congratulated by half the command. He was bruised, stitched up, and still magnetic in that annoying alpha way, the kind that made people want to follow even when he walked them into landmines. He didn't mention me once. Not the warning, not the tackle, not the fact that I'd dragged his unconscious body half a mile while evading enemy sensors and patching his side with one hand. But he remembered my scent. I know he did. Because as I walked past him, out the door, toward the silence that was waiting in my barracks, he flinched. Just slightly. His head turned toward me. His pupils dilated. And for one breathless second, I felt it again. The pull. The unspoken. The bond that shouldn't exist. My beast stirred. Just once. Then I locked it down. Like always. I showered with cold water and colder thoughts. You'd think I'd be used to it. The omission. The way my accomplishments were always written in invisible ink. Erased before they ever made it to the report. An Omega with field clearance? Unusual. An Omega who could outthink most betas and outfight some alphas? Disruptive. An Omega who didn't want a bond? Dangerous. I pulled on my uniform, no rank badges of course, and looked at myself in the mirror. Neutral. Flat. Efficient. And yet beneath the surface, the thing I'd buried growled. Not because of the mission, not because of the council, because of him. Because when his eyes locked on mine in that forest, something clicked. And I hated it. I hated the idea that part of me didn't want to break that moment. Wanted to stay under his weight, not out of instinct, but because it felt like choosing. But I don't get to choose. Not anymore. Later that night, I passed the main hallway. Laughter echoed. Raiden was sitting with 2 squad mates, bandage on his arm, grin on his face. And for once, he looked tired, like someone who wasn't performing alpha at full volume. Our eyes met. He stood. I kept walking. "Noah," he said. First time he'd used my name since training. I stopped. He approached, slowly, limping slightly. His scent hit me first. Leather, ozone, something stubborn beneath it all. "You okay?" he asked. My eyes narrowed. "You mean after dragging your unconscious body through enemy territory, while my internal systems flag me for overexertion? Peachy." He had the nerve to smirk. Didn't know Omegas could throw that hard. I stepped closer. Didn't know Alphas could be that blind. That wiped the smile off his face. A beat passed. He looked down, then up again. "Serious now. You saved my life." I nodded once. 3 times. "I don't remember the other 2. I do." I turned and walked away. Because if I stayed, if I let my beast feel that flicker of warmth, I might let him in. And I don't let anyone in. Not anymore. The interrogation room smelled like recycled air and sterilized steel. I sat still in the metal chair, arms folded, eyes on the panel of officers across from me. 3 betas. 1 alpha. Not a single omega. Not surprising. None of them made eye contact. Not really. They looked at me like a file that got misplaced. Like I wasn't supposed to be there. Upright, unbound, unrepentant. "Agent Noah Lee," said the central officer, voice clipped. "Your mission report is irregular." "You mean accurate," I corrected. A flicker of irritation. "Good. Let them be uncomfortable. Your unauthorized deviation from protocol resulted in explosive detonation and asset endangerment," the Alpha said. I smiled. "You mean the part where I saved Commander Raiden's life?" Raiden stood against the far wall, arms crossed, jaw locked. He hadn't said a word since the meeting began. He didn't look at me. But I knew he was listening. He always listened. Too well. "You endangered yourself, broke the chain of command, and revealed tactical awareness beyond your clearance level," the officer continued. "Would you prefer he'd lost a leg?" I asked flatly. That shut them up. For a beat. I leaned back. "Next time, I'll let him step on the mine. Just to follow the rules." Raiden shifted. I didn't look at him. I didn't have to. I could feel the tension radiating off his skin like heat. But still, he said nothing. Coward. The silence outside the room was even worse than the questioning inside. I stormed down the corridor, boots echoing off the cold floor, fluorescent lights buzzing above like mosquitoes in a jar. He caught up to me near the exit. "You done?" he asked, too calm. I spun on him. "You tell me. You stood there like a damn statue while they accused me of saving your sorry ass." Raiden's brow furrowed. "You were reckless." "No. I was effective. You would have died. I had it under control." I stepped closer. "Is that why I had to carry you out of there bleeding? Or was that part of the plan too?" His jaw clenched. "You're always trying to take command. You don't know when to stop." "I know exactly when to stop," I snapped. "Right before someone I work with gets himself killed because he thinks Alpha is a substitute for brains." He stiffened. "Bingo. You act like you want to lead," he said after a beat, voice low. "I act like I don't want to die following someone who doesn't think," I shot back. His eyes darkened. "You're just an Omega, right?" I blinked. Not because it shocked me, but because I'd waited years, for someone to be dumb enough to say it to my face. I stepped in until our noses nearly touched. "No," I said quietly. "I'm the Omega you're afraid of." He didn't move. "Good." I turned on my heel and walked out of the corridor, heart pounding in a rhythm I hadn't felt in a long time. Power, not over him, but over myself, and that was worse. For both of us. Later that night, I stared at the ceiling of my barracks room, trying to forget the way his voice had dropped when he said just an Omega. But instead of his voice, another echoed in my head. One from a long time ago. "You're lucky I gave you a place, Noah," my ex had told me once, his fingers tight around my wrist. "Without me, you'd be nothing." Remember that. I had remembered. For too long. Until I didn't. Until I stopped letting people define my worth by scent and instinct and biology. Until I made a name they didn't want to say, because saying it meant recognizing I didn't need them. But Raiden, he was different. Not better, not kinder, but sharper. And the worst part? He didn't see me as invisible. He saw me as inconvenient, necessary, dangerous. And that meant something. Because the only thing more dangerous than an alpha who underestimates you is one who sees too clearly. The base wasn't much more than concrete, steel, and silence. Tucked high in the northern range, it was originally built for observation drills, remote enough to keep signals out, fortified enough to keep secrets in, which made it perfect for what the council called temporary reassignment, which was code for, let's lock the problem children together and see what happens. We were the problem children. Me, The Omega who didn't submit. Him. The Alpha who couldn't let go. 3 days, Raiden muttered, slinging his duffel onto the cot in the main barracks room. Just until the debriefing team finishes their review. I didn't respond. I was too busy taking inventory, exits, sight lines, weapons locker, escape routes. He glanced at me. You're really going tactical on a bunk room? I looked at him. Old habits. He smirked, then said nothing. For once, the first 12 hours passed in near silence. He trained in the gym. I ran diagnostics in the comm room, pretending the satellite feed was more interesting than the mounting pressure building between my ribs. Something was wrong. It wasn't just the confinement. It was in my skin. Tight, itchy, like wearing someone else's body. My temperature ran hotter than normal. My hearing sharpened. Every sound Raiden made carried too far, sank too deep. At one point, I caught myself breathing in the scent he left behind on a towel. I dropped it like it burned me. What the hell was happening to me? By hour 18, I couldn't sit still. My fingers twitched. My molars clenched so tightly my jaw ached. Raiden noticed. We were in the shared kitchen, if you could call a kettle, a sink, and 2 cracked mugs a kitchen, and I was trying to make tea with shaking hands. He leaned against the counter. You okay? I didn't look at him. Fine. Your hands say otherwise. I gritted my teeth. Don't analyze me, Commander. That's rich, coming from our favorite analyst. His voice was light, but his gaze was focused. He saw too much. I dropped the mug. It shattered. I flinched. My vision blurred at the edges. Heart pounding. Okay, he said slowly. Noah, don't. My voice came out sharp. Wrong. Not mine. He stepped forward. I stepped back. My pupils dilated. My nails dug into my palms. Then the hum hit me. Low, deep, and vibrating under my skin like an earthquake in slow motion. I turned, grabbed the nearest object, a heavy data tablet, and hurled it across the room. It hit the wall, hard. Glass spidered, metal cracked. Silence. I stood there, chest heaving, sweat beading at my temples, and waited for him to shout. To bark orders. To challenge. But Raiden didn't move. He didn't even raise his voice. He looked at me like I was a puzzle piece that no longer fit the image. Like he'd been trying to shove me into the wrong shape this whole time. His voice, when it came, was low. What's happening to you? I didn't answer. Because I didn't know. I fled. Stormed down the corridor, locked myself in the secondary rec room, which was really just an empty space with an old couch and no windows, and pressed my back to the door. My breath hitched. My chest burned. I could feel it rising. The thing I'd buried for years. My beast. My instincts. The primal part of me I had trained into submission. Medicated. Conditioned. Buried. And now, it was clawing up my throat. No. I whispered. No. Not now. Not here. But my body didn't listen. My pulse pounded in my ears. I dropped to my knees, hands shaking. The worst part? It wasn't pain. It was relief. The beast wanted out. And for the first time, I wanted to let it. The medbay smelled like antiseptic and quiet judgment. I sat on the edge of the exam table, fingers digging into the padded edge, trying not to snap. Across from me, Dr. Ellen typed something into her console without looking at me. Her silver hair was pulled back in its usual severe knot, not a strand out of place, like everything about her was always controlled. Too bad I couldn't say the same for myself. You're not dying, she said finally. Great, I muttered. So what is it? Rage disorder? Psychotic break? Terminal sarcasm? She didn't smile. She rarely did. You're destabilizing. I went still. Come again? Your suppression conditioning is breaking down. She finally turned to face me. It was only a matter of time. Memories stirred. Cold rooms, needles, white coats, restraints. I was 12. I had just shifted for the first time. They said I was too aggressive, too volatile, not like other Omegas, not safe. So they made me quiet. They dulled me down to something manageable. They made me useful. You said that protocol was permanent, I said. My voice didn't shake, but my hands did. Ellen's eyes softened just a fraction. It was supposed to be. But your neural pathways adapted. The more you resisted instinct, the more pressure built beneath it. Now it's rupturing. Fantastic, I said. So I'm a walking time bomb. There's a solution, she said. Let me guess. A bullet? She gave me a look. A bond. That shut me up. A soul bond would stabilize your system, she continued. Sink your beast to an anchor strong enough to handle the energy spikes. Without it, the outbursts will continue, and worsen. I laughed. Bitter. Dry. I'm not bonding with anyone. I'm not a leash dog, and I'm not a romantic subplot. She didn't blink. This isn't about romance. It's biology. The door opened. Raiden stepped in. Of course he did. I stood immediately. You do not get to listen in on this. He didn't say anything. Just looked at me. Too calmly. Dr. Ellen gestured toward him. He's a viable anchor. I stared at her like she'd grown antlers. What? Your bond markers are rare. Only 0.03% compatibility rate with standard alphas. His scans match perfectly. Raiden finally spoke. That explains a lot. No, I said, stepping back. No. You don't get to stand there and act like this is normal. No one's saying it is, he replied, voice even. But maybe it's not the worst thing either. You'd be stuck with me, I snapped. You hate me. His brow furrowed. I don't. You think I'm arrogant, unstable. You said it yourself. Just an omega. Right? That was. I cut him off. And now what? You're my cure? My key? My cage? Ellen interjected, quiet but firm. He's not your cage. He's your choice. I shook my head. No. No more labs, no more labels. I'm not a project, Ellen. I'm not someone you fix with genetic glue and a handler. You're not broken, she said gently, but you've spent your life pretending you don't feel. Pretending instinct doesn't live under your skin. I said nothing. You've been a machine for too long, she said. Maybe it's time to be something alive. I left the room. Raiden didn't follow, but I felt his eyes on my back the whole way out. He didn't speak, and that, somehow, was worse than anything he could have said. There was only one bed. Of course there was. Protocol 17A. If an omega exhibits destabilization symptoms, and a bond-compatible alpha is available, proximity must be maintained overnight to prevent further episodes, which in practice meant one room, one bed, no doors between us. I stared at the mattress like it might bite me. Honestly, it probably would have been less terrifying than what I was actually afraid of. Raiden didn't say anything. He just dropped his jacket, toed off his boots, and sat on the edge of the bed like this was some normal night. It wasn't. Not for me. The lights were dimmed. A soft amber glow lit the room, but shadows still clung to the corners. I lay on one side of the mattress, facing the wall. Raiden lay on the other, spine straight, arms behind his head, breathing deep like he was meditating. We didn't touch, but I felt him. Every inch of him. Every shift, every breath, every hum of heat where his body warmed the sheets. And my body? It responded like it remembered something I hadn't let it feel in years. I clenched my fists, focused on the silence, tried to steady my breathing. But the air was thick. Every inhale felt like dragging fire into my lungs. You're shaking, he said, voice barely above a whisper. No, I'm not. You are. I bit my lip. Then stop looking at me. I'm not. I can feel it. Of course he could. His senses were sharp, especially now. I closed my eyes. Don't talk. Just don't make this harder. He exhaled. A pause. You think I don't get it, don't you? What's there to get? He shifted, propped himself up on one elbow. That you're terrified of what this could mean. I'm not terrified, I lied. Then why does your pulse spike every time I get closer? Because you're a pain in the ass. That earned a soft huff of something dangerously close to laughter. Then, Silence again. The silence stretched. And then, his fingers brushed mine. Barely. Like he was testing something. Or offering. I didn't move. Neither did he. The warmth of his skin seeped into mine like sunlight under ice. Something inside me eased. The beast breathed. Not roared. Not clawed. Just exhaled. I opened my eyes. Still facing the wall. Still frozen. But my hand was in his. Just barely. And I hadn't pulled away. "I'm not dangerous," I whispered, the words tasting like ash. "I know. I'm not weak. I never said you were." I swallowed hard. "Then why do I feel like I'll fall apart the second you let go?" He didn't let go. Instead, his thumb moved, the tiniest stroke across my knuckles. "Maybe because you've been holding yourself together too long," he said. My throat closed. I wanted to yell. To bolt. To break the moment before it broke me. But I didn't. I stayed. "I don't want this," I whispered. "I know." "Then why am I still holding your hand?" He didn't answer right away. And when he did, it was soft. "Because you want to live." I turned my head. Just slightly. Enough to see his profile in the warm light. Calm, but not distant. Focused. Not on control. But on me. For once, I didn't feel like prey. I felt seen. And the fire didn't burn so much as glow. We didn't sleep. But by dawn, I'd stopped shaking. And neither of us had let go. The smell of tea calmed me more than I cared to admit. Steam curled up from the chipped ceramic cup, catching the morning light as it filtered through the narrow window above the kitchen sink. The base was quiet. Still. Just the low hum of machines and the quiet weight of words that hadn't yet been spoken. Raiden leaned against the opposite counter, arms crossed, watching the kettle like it might explode. His hair was still damp from the shower. He hadn't shaved. There was a softness to him this morning. Not weak, just human. And it scared me more than anything. We hadn't talked about the night before. Not the mattress. Not the silence. Not the fact that I'd let him touch me and didn't flinch. He hadn't pushed. I hadn't run. It felt like balance. Like standing on the edge of something and not falling. Not yet. "Thanks," I said, taking the cup he handed me. He just nodded. No smart remark. No smirk. I sipped, and silence stretched between us. Not awkward, just waiting. He broke it first. "You seem steadier today." I raised an eyebrow. Trying to say I don't look like I'm about to throw furniture? A small smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "Not currently, no." I let the joke hang, then looked down at the swirling steam. "I could have killed you," I said quietly. The smile faded. "I know." I glanced up. "But you stayed." He met my eyes. "You think I don't know danger when I see it? You still touched me. I didn't think you'd bite." "I almost did." He shrugged. "I've been bit before." I laughed once. Short, dry. "You're insane." "Probably." He stepped forward, just slightly. His shadow crossed mine on the wall. Two shapes, close but not overlapping. "You scare me, Noah," he said. It was the first time he used my name. Not Agent. Not Omega. Just me. The sound of it in his voice made something shift in my chest. Not break. Just move. There was a beep at the console. New message. I moved to check it. Raiden followed, standing close enough that I could feel his body heat behind me. The screen displayed a council summons. Immediate return. Subject, Noah Lee. Status, under review. And beneath it, a secondary file from Dr. Ellen. I opened it. Warning, if bond instability continues, neurological collapse is possible. Subject must remain near anchor. Separation increases fatal risk for both parties. My hands curled around the console edge. Raiden read over my shoulder. "Well," he said, "that's not dramatic at all." I didn't laugh. He stepped beside me. "You okay?" "No," I said. I didn't try to lie anymore. For a moment we just stood there. Our reflections shimmered in the black glass of the screen, side by side. Equal. But very much not the same. If this goes wrong, I said, we both burn. Then maybe, Raiden said softly, we learn how to walk through fire. The tea had gone cold, but the silence between us wasn't. It was full of choice. And for the first time, I didn't want to run. The council hall had always felt more like a temple than a courtroom. Cold marble. High arches. Raised seats designed to make everyone else feel smaller. I didn't feel small. I felt furious. Not the volatile kind. Not the kind that shook walls and shattered glass. The quiet kind. The kind that made me stand taller, speak slower, burn cleaner. I stood alone in the center of the chamber. A single circle of light from above illuminated the polished floor around me. The rest of the hall was shadowed, packed with council members, aides, guards, and more eyes than I cared to count. None of them met my gaze. Except one. Chairwoman Varel. Raiden's mother. Her mouth was set in a line of polished contempt. Agent Noah Lee, she said. You've been summoned for judgment on the grounds of unauthorized aggression, instability, and failure to disclose your condition to your superiors. My condition. Like I was a virus. I said nothing. Yet, she continued, we have reviewed your service record. It is impressive, if unusually aggressive for an Omega. A pause. Then the punchline. Some would say dangerously so. Some, I said clearly, confuse danger with competence. A murmur rose in the hall. Virel raised one elegant hand, silencing it. You believe yourself above classification? I believe your classifications are outdated, I said, and weaponized. Her eyes narrowed. Then explain to this council how you expect to serve with a beast inside you can't control. I lifted my chin. Because I can. I let the change start slow. Felt the heat curl beneath my ribs. Let it spread up my spine, down my fingers. My pupils shifted. Nails lengthened, just slightly. My scent, restrained for so long, unfurled in the air like a storm front. Not submission, not challenge. Something else. Command. Control. The room tensed. Several guards stepped forward. I didn't move. I've lived with this beast my whole life, I said. And I've never asked it to be quiet. Only to be honest. No growl. No roar. Just presence. And silence. I can confirm it. Raiden stepped into the light. Uniform crisp. Eyes clear. Calm, but unshakable. He walked to me, stopped half a pace behind, then stepped forward, shoulder to shoulder. I hadn't asked him to come. But he did. On his own. Chairwoman Varel's lips thinned. Commander, she said sharply. This is highly irregular. Irregular is watching your council label someone unstable while ignoring his accomplishments, Raiden cut in. Irregular is needing an Omega to save your best squads but refusing to give him a name. This isn't your concern. It is now, he said. He's my bondmate. Gasps. A collective ripple of outrage and disbelief. I didn't flinch. Raiden didn't waver. Varel stood slowly, voice glacial. You shame your position. And your lineage. Raiden looked straight at her. No, he said. I finally honor it. They argued for what felt like hours. Voices rose. Accusations flew. Some wanted me expelled. Others demanded I be quarantined. A few whispered the word trial like it was a death sentence in slow motion. I stood in the same place the whole time. Didn't bow. Didn't plead. Didn't run. And then, a new voice. Enough. From the shadows stepped a councilman I hadn't expected to speak. Lord Ren, an alpha who'd once tried to block my promotion, who'd called me a tactical liability, who'd dismissed every report I wrote as overcomplicated. He stepped into the light, looked at me, then at the council. I voted against him once, he said, because I thought strength only came one way. He looked back at me. I was wrong. Then turned to the chairwoman. My vote is for recognition. Silence. Cold. Shattering. Then, the scale tipped. It wasn't unanimous. It didn't need to be. By the end of the session, I wasn't a suspect. I was a council appointee. The first Omega in active strategy leadership. As the hall emptied, Raiden turned to me. "You okay?" I nodded. He looked at me for a long moment. "Why didn't you flinch when I said it?" "Said what?" "That we're bonded." I met his gaze. "Because I didn't feel owned." He smiled, slow and quiet. "Good. If I fall," I thought, "let it be like this. Let it be beside someone who sees the whole of me, beast and mind and flame, and doesn't run." The council hall looked different in the morning light. Still cold, still towering. But today, it didn't shrink me. Today, I walked through it in uniform. Not as a silent weapon, not as a liability, not as a classified file. As myself, and for once, that was enough. My boots echoed down the polished corridor. Heads turned as I passed. Some nodded stiffly, some bowed slightly. But no one looked away. Not because they were afraid, because they saw me now. All of me. And they respected it. The council's official message had gone out at dawn. Advisor Noah Lee, Omega Class, is hereby instated to Strategic Command on rotation, with full privileges and rank. Probation lifted. Full clearance granted. I didn't frame the document. I didn't need to. I'd already memorized every word. Raiden stood at the end of the hall, dressed in civilian blacks, leaning against the wall like he belonged there. Like he always had. When I reached him, he gave me a once-over. "You clean up all right?" I smirked. Try not to sound too impressed. He fell into step beside me as we moved down the long corridor. For a while, neither of us spoke. The silence wasn't heavy anymore. It was easy. Like breathing. "People are looking at you differently," he said after a while. "Yeah," I replied. "You okay with that?" I thought about it. About years of being invisible, then resented, then feared. Now? Respected. "I don't need them to love me," I said. "I just need them to stop pretending I'm not here." He nodded once. Quiet. Then, "You want me to walk behind you? Let you take the spotlight?" I stopped walking. Turned to him fully. His brow arched, just slightly. "No?" I stepped closer. "I don't want you behind me." I reached for his hand, the same way he once reached for mine, and laced our fingers together. "I want you beside me. I want you to be my light." He didn't smile. Not at first. His throat worked. His eyes softened. Then, that slow, warm expression that was all him. "You always have the right words," he murmured. "No," I said. "I just stopped apologizing for them." Outside, the wind stirred the trees. The air smelled of frost and something electric. Not danger, not warning. Just change. Inside me, my beast stirred once more. Not to fight, not to run, to rest. And beside me, I could feel his doing the same. Our instincts breathed in sync, balanced. Not because we made each other tame, because we never asked each other to be. Let them say Omegas can't lead. Let them whisper behind closed doors. Let them write new protocols and twist old rules. They'll still have to look me in the eye now. Because I never wanted the crown. Just the right to stand. And now, I do.